Welcome to our Cruising with a Family vlog. This is aimed at people who have never cruised before and thinking of taking their children, or if you're a regular cruiser but you've never cruised with P&O before on the Iona ship, and we hear that Avia is also very similar to Iona. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the vlog where we will be sharing some checklists to help with your planning, your packing and your onboard itinerary. When you first consider cruising, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, so we're going to talk through a few things about how to pick the right cruise line and ship, what activities could be available, how the kids clubs work, and also what to pack, amongst many other tips as well. So why have I created this vlog? We've been cruising now for 20 years. We've been cruising before we had children, when our children were really young, including when they were babies and when I was pregnant, and also all through their early years. Ariana's now 8 and Leo is 6. So over the past few years of travelling as a family, we have learnt a lot, not just through cruising, but holidays in general with children are really, really different. And we have learnt a lot, mainly through making a lot of mistakes. There was one time we went to Spain and we left every single bottle we owned in the airport. So yeah, that was interesting. We've slotted in a few photos and videos of activities we've enjoyed across the different cruise lines with our children. Which cruise line is it that best fits your family? And not all cruise lines are family friendly. Some cruise lines are family friendly, but they'll have adult only ships within the fleet. What you need to do is have a look at where you want to go, see which cruise lines go there on the dates that you want to travel, and then have a look at the different cruise lines and the ships within that fleet that might fit your family and the things that you like to do. Not all cruise ships are the same, so it's really important you have a look at things like, for example, water slides. If that's something your family want on the ship, then only some ships will have those, so you need to look for the ones that do. If the kids club is really important to you, is it so important that you need to know that your kids will have a space, so you might want to book something like Disney? Or are you happy to take it a bit more free flow and book your children in if you can and go on the wait list if not? If so, cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, P&O, NCL could be perfect. This vlog is primarily focused on cruising with children and as a family for children of all ages. So if you're an adult travelling without children, you might want to check out our other vlog with top tips for adults cruising. Some people are a little bit anxious about putting their children into the kids club, and that's totally understandable. Our children have always had a really good experience. They enjoy making friends, the crafting, the activities, the meet and greets with characters if that's something on the cruise line you're with. It's just really good fun. And what we always do with them is when we get on the cruise ship, we take them along if there's a settling in session or to see what's happening. And we say to them, do you want to go in for half an hour or an hour? And we will then come back at the end of that time period and check in with them and say, how's it going? Do you want to come out or are you happy? And so far, we've never had them turn around and say we want to come out. In fact, it's normally, can we stay longer? Can we come back tonight? What's the activity later? There's so many different things planned and they try and make it age appropriate too. So as they get older, it's a little bit more free format. There'll be video games, there'll be sort of competitions, sports competitions, etc. So yeah, it's well worth having a look at. Your children can dip in and out of it. If they want to try it, they can. If it's not for them, it's not for them. It's fine. No one's forced to participate in anything. It's just really handy sometimes if you want to go do something that is 18 plus and they can't come with you and you don't have anyone else with you to look after the children. And also sometimes they just want to hang out with other kids and they don't want to just be with mummy and daddy all the time. So it's there. If you want to use it, use it. If you don't, you don't. A really key point to make here is that each cruise line will split age groups of children slightly differently. So if you have more than one child like us and your children want to go into kids club together, it's really important that you check that at the time of sailing, your children will be grouped in the same category. They won't really group children together that aren't of the same age. We've had it once where Leo was about a month away from moving up to the next group. So let him try both, one time each. And after that, he had to decide which one to stay in. He actually picked the younger group because their room had a slide. Our children aren't as bothered about going in together, so it worked for us. But it is just something to be aware of. If you're travelling with other adults, like we were with our grandparents, you were able to set them up to be able to collect the children as a secondary adult on the account. You had to go in there together to do this, but it was really handy for when we were maybe still at dinner and Nana could pick up the children. Children can't leave a kids club without an adult. They have to be signed out until they reach a certain age, and this changes depending on the cruise line. With P&O and on the Iona, you could book slots from 8:30 a.m. the day before you needed them. Be careful with this because if the times have changed and the clocks have gone forward or back, you need to make sure you're on at the right time. The My Holiday page was quite easy to use. You could use the Wi-Fi from the ship and you could quickly pick which slot you wanted to put them into. So there's generally 3 slots on a sea day, morning, afternoon and PM, and when you're at port they would normally just have an afternoon and an evening. The afternoon session, for example, would be 2 to 4:45, and the evening session would be from 6 to 10:45. It was half term and the cruise was full of children, but we still managed to get our kids into the slots that we needed. I think that's because we were online at the 8:30. However, if you wanted to try and put them in later, you could wait for slots to free up, or I believe they also had a wait list. And for the bookings, you didn't have to have an internet package. You could use the Wi-Fi on the ship to make those sort of bookings and restaurant bookings and kids club, etc., without having to pay for Wi-Fi. Now, it's really important that you check the ages of the groups and the ratios as well before you go to see what your chances are of being able to use the kids club. But also there are some potential costs involved. So some costs could include, if you don't show, so you're a no-show, P&O, for example, will take a charge if you booked a slot and don't turn up. There's also a small charge if you cancel, but within a certain period of time as well. There could also be additional charges for late staying. So some of them will offer nurseries for babies and you can pay for that. Some of them will offer kids club until a certain time. Say, I think Royal was 10 PM and after that you pay a certain amount per hour. And Iona, it was totally free to use the kids club, but when they shut at 10:45, that was it. There was no other options for children of our age. Now, for anyone that's paid for childcare, like we have for many, many years in a nursery, the free childcare that you get on a cruise line for a couple of hours here and there so you can go and do some adult things while the children are having loads of fun is priceless. So I started Travel Mama on Facebook and Instagram because I am a huge planner. I love to plan our days out, our trips, our holidays. I really, really get into the detail and I try and work out what's best for our family before we go. But if that's not your style, that's okay too. The beauty of travelling and sailing on cruise lines is that they do all the hard work for you. You'll get a daily planner every day showing you all the different activities you can get involved in. Some of them you can pre-book before you go, but if that's just not your thing, that's okay. You can quite often just go to things as you feel like it on the ship. Now, there may be some things that will sell out. So on the Iona, for example, a lot of the shows sold out before we got on there. I had pre-booked, but when we arrived and we sat down, there were loads of seats left. So once it got to about 5 to the start of the show, anyone that hadn't got a booking, they just opened the doors and filled the seats up. So again, it depends on how much stress you feel if you haven't booked something. I feel very stressed if I don't have a ticket. We love cruising with our children because we love to travel, and this is a really easy way of seeing multi-destinations during one holiday. The ports are always super interesting. There's loads to see and do. If you like somewhere, you can always go back to it for longer later. And if you don't, you've tried it. We find it really, really easy to sail directly from Southampton. So if you pick whichever is your nearest port and you don't have to fly, then you avoid all that airport stress. But what I would recommend is not flying in on the day that your cruise ship sets sail, especially if it leaves quite early in the day, because if there's any issues with your flight, if there's any sort of delay, you just don't need that stress, and ships don't wait. So I would highly recommend that you maybe fly in a day or two before and enjoy the city where the port is that you're sailing from. We're doing that later this year for Barcelona, so we'll share the vlog when we've been, and we'll share with you the hotel that we stay in beforehand. Let's get on to what you can do on a cruise ship. What are these great fun activities you can do at sea? Well, we have been on quite a few cruise lines and we have a few more coming up this year, and they're all very different. We have done some incredible things, from the usual swimming and some with water slides to rock climbing, indoor skydiving, discos including silent discos, bumper cars, football and sports competitions, magic shows, bowling, simulators, arcades, a really fun laser tag. There have been some incredible shows such as the Animal Guys, which we'll talk about later, and most of it is completely free. Some have additional costs, and not all of them are available on every ship, so you've just got to work out what your family would find most fun. On our most recent cruise in February half term on the Iona, there were a number of activities that were available because it was half term, so they put more kids' activities on. But a number of the activities you would normally do on a hot weather cruise on that ship in particular, you just couldn't do. It was too cold and they weren't open, like the splash pad, etc. So again, time of year can impact what's available. But I find that some cruise lines that are very family orientated will have quite a lot of activities on. On the Iona, it was February half term and there were so many kids on board. One of the things that they had booked for us to do was to be able to go and watch a show by the Animal Guys, We know of the animal guys because they're often at Butlins and we've seen their dinosaur versus mammal show, which is incredible. This was the same. It was great. The animal puppets are fantastic. It's fun, it's silly, it's interactive, but it has an educational undertone. It helps you learn more about sustainability and the importance of the environment. It was really good fun. It had fully booked out, but there were still spaces in the room, so don't be put off if you can't get on there. That's probably the best kids show that we've seen so far. Some of the activities you can pre-book and some activities you can't. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. So on Royal Caribbean, there was laser tag. You couldn't pre-book for that, you just went up, queued and had a go, and it was one go per family. But when they got to the end of the slot, if there wasn't many people waiting, they would let you have another turn. With the bumper cars, which were again free to have a go on, you would just queue up again and again and again until it was your turn. Another top tip from us, if you want to do something like the indoor skydiving, there is a cost related to that if you book a longer session, but if you just pick a 60-second taster, quite often they will have that for free at different points. We went on the ship and went straight to the indoor skydiving booking office and got booked in for later on that day. And the same for the North Star arm. I think when you're at sea and the arm reaches out over the sea, there is a charge for that. But if you just want to go up in it and have a look, then again, I don't think there is a charge for it. It wasn't when we went on it. And so yeah, it's just having a look to see how much you want to do something and if that cost is worth it for you. On the Iona, there was a cinema. The cinema had 4 screens and the showings changed daily. One of the screens was always children friendly, and they had about 3 or 4 showings a day. The great thing about this was you didn't need to book it. You could just turn up, look at the screen outside, and you could tell from the colourings of the seats whether someone was sat in there or not, and if there was enough space for you and your family to go and enjoy a show. Shore excursions when you're in port. Now, there's a lot of varied responses to this. The stock answer is book through the cruise line and pick one of the many options that they will offer because you know you've got the guarantee then to get back to the port on time. Depending on your accessibility needs and how much you're up for exploring, and for example, if you're in port overnight, so you know you've got no chance of missing the ship because they really won't wait for you, so do not be late back, you might want to consider doing it yourselves because it often works out much cheaper. Check if the port that you're stopping in is walking distance to the town, or maybe there's a transfer included. For example, we had a transfer to Hamburg, which was included with our fare, but wasn't part of a shore excursion. If you're wanting to go somewhere that's really popular, like the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona or Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam, be aware that tickets for this can often sell out and will come on sale quite often a few weeks in advance before you go. So make sure you set an alarm for those. You can also book trips through things like Viator, and I'll share an affiliate link of that later on in case that is of interest, and again can be cheaper than direct through the cruise line. Public transport is often a really cost-effective way to travel, so that is always an option, and we love a hop-on hop-off bus, which isn't necessarily the most cost-effective option, but we love just sitting on top of a bus and having a look around. On the Iona, we booked an excursion through P&O for children. It was called Game of the Goose, and it was meant to be more tailored for children and interactive, and we thought it would be a little bit more like an escape room. It wasn't, it was more of a walking tour with interactive bits for the children, and I probably, in hindsight, wouldn't book that again. Let's talk about packing, because there's certain things you might need to bring and certain things you might not need. Firstly, I always get asked about cleanliness and seasickness. For cleanliness, we always take hand gel and antibacterial wipes wherever we go. That's the same for when we go on a ship too. And we really encourage good hand washing before every meal. There's sinks outside nearly every restaurant. You might even hear people singing washy washy. Seasickness isn't really something that's affected our family on a cruise line before. We have had it on car ferries over the Bay of Biscay, so we have some items that we take with us, but on a cruise liner, because they're so big and generally so stable, you don't really feel too much movement, even in quite choppy waters. However, if that's something that you're worried about, there are things you can bring with you. So you probably have heard of travel bands before, and there are seasickness tablets you can get for children and for adults. Just check the ages on them if you're buying the children's ones. You can also buy some natural patches off Amazon. You stick a little circle sticker behind your ear and before you start sailing, and they work for a couple of days. We find that some people, if they put 2 of them on, they actually feel sick from the patch. So just start with 1, see how you get on. They're quite cheap as well from memory, and I'm sure you can get them in other places, but that's where we bought ours. Very luckily for us, we live really close to the port of Southampton, and we will always book parking at the port. So when we arrive, generally the car is taken away from us. We'll grab a trolley. There might even be staff around to help you with your luggage. You get the luggage over to the right deck number and they take that away for you. They take it up to your room and then you walk through what is similar to airport security, and it's really easy. Quite often you can get through it really quickly. So we've been through as quickly as in 20 minutes. Once it took about an hour. As soon as you're on your ship and you've done whatever muster you need to do, then you can head straight for food if you want to, or just start exploring, and your holiday's begun. You don't need to hang around in any sort of airport lounge or anything like that. I also find it really good because cruises generally will let you take unlimited luggage. Now, if you're flying, you'll be limited by what you're allowed to take on the airplane, and I hate trying to pack everything into two 23-kilogram suitcases. It's just impossible. So when you can go on a cruise and you can take as much luggage as you can basically carry and can fit in your cabin, that's brilliant. Ships are definitely becoming more sustainability focused, so you will quite often be able to find water bottle refill stations pretty much everywhere you go, and they're moving away from plastic bottles. Take your refillable with you, and to help, if children don't really like water, you can get some squeezy squashes that fit into your handbag, and they're really handy when you're just out and about to try and encourage children to drink, especially in hot weather, and give them something that's a little bit more refreshing and flavourful than just water. I would recommend as well that you bring a small first aid kit with you, filled with the things that you most use at home. So for us, it's always Calpol, ibuprofen, plasters, nail scissors, Vaseline, Sudocrem, Piriton, all the things that you know in the middle of the night, in the middle of the ocean, the children are probably going to need. And there might be a shop on the ship, but they're generally more expensive. You might be able to get them in port, but it's not going to be when you've got the convenience options available to you that you're going to need them. And if you end up going to the ship's doctor, that can be incredibly expensive. So definitely take what you think you might need with you. That's the same for your prescription medicine as well. Make sure you take enough of that because that could be costly if you forget. Before you sail, you might want to purchase a few little plastic ducks. This is because on many of the cruise lines, there is often a duck hunt. Now, this is not formally arranged by the cruise lines as some of them don't support it. For example, I think Disney have banned them. However, for the ones that do allow it, you take little plastic ducks with you, and they could be the ducks themselves, a key ring or a magnet, and you hide them around the ship. You and your family then try and find some ducks from around the ship where you can keep them or you can re-hide them. Our kids absolutely love looking for them, and it was a big deal on the ship. I think there were hundreds hidden on the half-term ship that we went on. On the Iona with P&O, it was the first time we'd seen a laundrette available on every single floor that had rooms on it. The laundrette was open for most of the hours of the day, it was totally free to use and had washing machines, dryers and irons available. You did have to bring your own detergent though. On the other cruise lines we've been on, normally you get a laundrette bag, and if you do want anything washing, you pop it in the bag and the attendant would take it away at a small charge. Something you probably don't need to pack though is a towel. You have towels for in-room use, and quite often on most cruise lines we've been on, there are towels by the pool for either the sun lounges or for swimming, and you pop them in the used towel bin when you're finished and go get a new one the next day. Sometimes you have to leave your card for them, sometimes like on P&O you can just take as many as you need and put them back in. So that's really helpful because it doesn't fill up your suitcases. I've also seen many of the cruise lines provide safety floats for children to help them with their swimming. And for children that are not yet potty trained, you definitely need to bring some swim nappies for them. Although for hygiene reasons, they're often not allowed in some of the swimming pools or splash pads, etc. So you just need to check the rules of your cruise line and your ship for the age of your child and whether they are potty trained or not before you sail. Drying your wet swimwear can be a bit of a pain, but on the Iona, in the shower, they had a small metal wire that you could pull out and hang across, which was there for your wet washing, and I found that really useful. If travelling with a baby, there are some things that really help when you're travelling. We found that steriliser tablets were far more useful and easy to travel with compared to a full sterilising machine. So we recommend getting some of those. I think ours were from Boots. Also, you might want to think about ear defenders, and not just for babies, for all children that may struggle with sensory noises, but also in case some of the shows are a bit too loud for their age and their ear size. But top tip on that, if a child has a cruise card and it's set up to be able to use the arcade, for example, make sure that the payment limit is restricted or that they have to use your card to pay for the arcade, because what you don't want to do is run up a massive bill, especially when the arcade quite often will be about £2, £3 a go on every machine that's available. Another thing you probably don't need is shower gel and shampoo. They're quite often provided. I think P&O had the white company, which was great. I do always take a conditioner for myself, but for the children, if they need a no tears shower gel, then you might want to pack one of those too. Next up, we're going to talk food options on a cruise. If you're anything like me, when you're at home, you just spend your life planning what's for dinner, shopping, making sure the kids are getting enough vegetables, preparing it, cooking it, begging people to eat it. It's a lot. So one of the things I love most about being on the cruise, or any inclusive holiday actually, is that the food's prepared for you and there's so much choice. The buffets on a cruise are amazing. They have so much variety, and it's a really good way of getting children to try something a little bit different they maybe wouldn't make at home. And they always have great selections, especially at breakfast. So pastries, cereals, fruits, hot breakfast food. There really is something for everybody. The cruise lines have started to cater a lot better for allergies recently and dietary requirements. On the last cruise, we could see gluten-free options and different milks offered without needing to ask. But if you do have anything, specifically if it's a medical need, I would suggest that you talk to the cruise line before you sail, just to make sure that they can accommodate exactly what you need and you can understand how they do this. A great thing on the Iona was that they did a kids buffet from 5 to 5:45 p.m. This had things like pasta dishes, sandwiches, fruit and veg, fish fingers, French fries and puddings like jelly and ice cream. This was brilliant because you could fill up the kids on food that they liked just before popping them into Kids Club. You knew they'd be well fed and be happy. We often did this and then would pick them up after we'd been for our own meal and possibly sometimes a show if it wasn't appropriate for them. Sometimes they would come with us, sometimes they would just stay in Kids Club for a little bit longer.
It's quite tough to need my help. Yeah.
What have you gone for, James?
I went for the beef chow mein and fish chips.
Ooh, yum. I've gone fish and chips, curry sauce and fried chicken.
Cruise lines have a variety of different ways to eat. Quite often there'll be some walk-in fast food venues too. So on Iona they have the Taste 360. This is in the Sky Dome next to the swimming pool. And from about noon to about 9 p.m, you could get anything from pizza to burgers to chicken nuggets. Some were pre-made and you could ask to pre-order them in a certain way if you wanted them like that. You might also hear the terminology MDR, or main dining room. This is a formal way to service dinners and it's included in your cruise fare. Each cruise line is different in how they allocate you in an MDR. You might need to use an app or a web page to book each night. Children are allowed to join you in the MDR, and they often have a children's menu version which is available. On the Iona you can see on here that there's things like macaroni cheese, burgers, grilled chicken with 2 sides, you can get more if you do want more, and a pudding. Leo was obsessed with the pancakes. Drinks wise, it depends on whether or not you've got a drinks package or if your children drink soft drinks or not. We will talk about the drinks package more in the adult vlog, but for now I will add that we didn't have one for this cruise, so we enjoyed the breakfast juices, so it was apple and orange juice from memory, and also we would then buy drinks throughout the day if we fancied them, and they had a great selection at reasonable prices. Ice cream is always a big hit on the cruise lines. We've had really different experiences across them, so some offer self-serve. I think Royal Caribbean had a self-serve machine on the outside. On Iona, they had a Sundays ice cream bar, which was right next to the swimming pool, and they also had Ripples. Ripples was a more fancy ice cream joint where you could get different banana splits or sundaes, and you could pick all the different toppings you wanted yourself. They even did an incredible ice cream afternoon tea, which we didn't get to eat ourselves, but we saw other people enjoying it and they looked amazing. Specialty dining. This is something that most ships offer. It will be a restaurant or two that you will need to pay extra for. And we have taken the children to some specialty dinings with us. So for example, the Petit Chef on Celebrity is an interactive dining experience where they project a story onto your table. It's incredible. If you get a chance to do that ever, please do it. Alice in Wonderland was the restaurant on Royal Caribbean, and again it was quite an immersive experience. It was interactive. I won't spoil it, but that was really good fun too. One of my favourite things to do on a cruise is to buy the photo package, because it's very rare that we're all done up nicely and I've had a chance to do my makeup and my hair and we're all smiling and happy and relaxed. And also it's a professional photographer. It means that mummy's actually in a photo, and it means that I get to go home at the end of the week and have a whole selection of photos to remember it, but also just of us as a group, a whole group. So I think it's a brilliant way of getting some lovely family photos, cheaper than you probably pay a professional at home, and a bigger range. So I will buy the package before we sail. You can buy one-off photos. It can be cheaper to buy the non-printed version, digital versions as well. I will add that on the Iona, I only saw one opportunity to have a picture taken on the formal night, and the queues for that were incredibly long. So I'm glad I didn't get the photo package on P&O. But for MSC and Royal Caribbean, I would highly recommend it. Another question I often get asked is, should you pay for internet? Now, it's really important when you get on the ship to turn your phone onto airplane mode and turn off any sort of roaming charges, because they can quickly add up. But if you are wanting to stay on the internet, or if you have children, especially teenagers, that can't live without being on the internet, then you need to think about Wi-Fi. You can pre-book Wi-Fi packages through the cruise line, and before you sail, it's often a bit cheaper. However, there are other alternatives too. Just using your internet when you're in port if you're on a port-intensive cruise itinerary, or you can also look at maritime sims. There are some. At this point, it's probably a really good time to talk about needing travel insurance. Cruise lines will ask you to make sure you have travel insurance before you travel, but it really is a must. It's best that you declare absolutely everything that you know of before you go. Pick the best cover for you and your family, and make sure you tell your provider that you're going on a cruise. Top tip here is check with your bank, because quite often you can get insurance with some of your accounts and it might cover it. You can also check with your insurer to see if it includes missed port cover. This could be really important, especially if you're going in poor weather, because if you miss a port for any reason, it may be covered by your insurance. And if you book shore excursions, etc., that aren't paid out by the cruise line, then you might need to make a claim upon it. So check that before you go. Now, I'm going to be really clear that I'm not giving any advice on any sort of travel insurance you should pick. You need to do the research and you need to pick what's best for your family. But what I am saying is you just don't know when an accident can happen, and getting help on holiday is really expensive, and on a ship going to be even more so. So definitely don't travel without it. Now, I love a good spa, and I'll talk about that on the adult vlog, and most of them are kid-free zones. However, on Iona, they actually offered some mummy and me type options where you could get your nails done together and have an ice cream, which I thought was really lovely. One of the first things I do when I've booked my next sailing is try and join a Facebook group, either for that ship, for that cruise line, or ideally for that exact sailing. It's a great way to meet some fellow passengers before you go. You can all get excited, count down together, share some top tips in there, learn from people that have been on that ship and sailing before, ask any questions you might have. It's just a really good way to engage before you get on the cruise line. Now, if you're a toilet panicker like me, where will there be a toilet for the children if they need it anytime, or for myself? Then one of the things that I would recommend you doing is having euros, because quite often when you're in Europe they will charge you to be able to use the toilet, so having a couple of euro coins in your pocket is really useful. Not all of them take cards yet. There's also some apps you can use like Flush or Accessaloo, so maybe download those to be able to find your nearest public toilet. What you don't need to worry about is toilets on the ship. There are plenty, they're very accessible, and we'll have changing for children facilities too. Another area I wanted to touch on is safety. So people talk about air tags and wristbands. The cruise line will often give a child a wristband to wear with your phone number on it, and it will help them to get them to the right muster station should they be in kids club and you need to be found. People also use Apple tags quite often for their luggage, but people will also use them on children. I don't think they work very well on the ship themselves, but when you're in port, it could be a good idea to have one just in case you get separated. Balconies is another area that people get anxious about. I personally feel like it must be quite difficult to fall over a balcony on a cruise ship. They're really quite high, they're above an adult's waist. However, accidents do happen, and so in our balcony we always pull the furniture away from the edge, have it more against the door rather than the rail. We talk to our children about safety and how they must never lean over. And there is also a lock on the inside, so not just where you shut the door, but above that there's a lock where you can reach up, and only a tall person or an adult will be able to reach it, and you can lock it from the inside to make sure that should the children wake up when you're asleep, they can't open the door and get out. Another key safety tip to be aware of is to not have your balcony open and open the main door inside the cabin into the corridor. This can cause an eddying effect with the wind and can cause doors to slam, and people have been injured in the past. It's best to shut your balcony door before you go out onto the corridor. So I really hope you found that useful. You'll see behind me now that we've put up the checklist that you'll be able to take a screenshot of, or if you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you'll be able to download those. If you want to follow more of our adventures, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you're going on an adventure, or you can think of a top tip that I haven't shared and we should have included, please pop it as a comment underneath. I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully seeing our travels inspired you to book your own cruise. Wherever you decide to go on whichever line, we hope you have a great sailing.